Hello and good evening, everyone. It is that special time again, Thursday night, and it's now the time for Healthy Living with my dear friend, Kathy B., hostess of the show this evening. And we are calling in now and ready to go live for the new amazing topic of the new year. Here we go.
Good evening, Source Nation. Good evening, and welcome to Healthy Living with Kathy B. We have about an hour before we lose the live feed. Telephone number to reach us tonight is 619-924-0933. Again, 619-924-0933. We want to take a quick moment to thank some wonderful people because I tell you, this show would not be possible without them. Of course, up first we had Chef Keith. For more information on Chef Keith, go over to Kathy B. Source Radio Network, as well as our main station page, Source Radio Network. And then I want to thank Miss Vita for coming in. That's right, she gave us an excellent workout tonight, so you definitely want to go over to Kathy B. Source Radio Network, as well as our main station page, Source Radio Network, for more information on both Chef Keith as well as Vita. Well, you guys know what time it is. That's right. It is now time for Healthy Living with our dear friend, Dr. Julissa Hernandez. And I tell you, tonight's conversation is going to be an excellent one because we're going to talk about the two main causes of diabetes. That's right, two main causes of diabetes. Now, before I bring Dr. Julissa in, Source Nation, I had the opportunity to read an amazing article in reference to our conversation tonight. Now, did you know over 470 million people are projected to have prediabetes by the year 2030? Now, let me read that once again so you all can understand how serious this conversation is tonight. 470 million people are projected to have prediabetes by 2030. So what we're going to do is we're going to speak with Dr. Julissa Hernandez tonight. She's going to give us some great information in reference to the two main causes of diabetes. I do believe that Dr. Julissa is here in the studio with us tonight. Dr. Julissa, hello and welcome to Healthy Living. How are you?
I'm feeling divine, dear, especially now that I'm here with you. How are you?
I am wonderful. I want to thank you so much for coming in tonight. We have some dynamic family members that have been joining us for quite some time here at the station and definitely out on Facebook. So if you will, please take a moment to introduce yourself. That would be great.
Thank you so much, dear. So, hello, everyone. Hello, everyone on Facebook. Hello, dear Source family. I'm Dr. Julissa Hernandez, naturopathic doctor, practicing for now over 22 years, a teacher of natural medicine, and a radio and television personality as well, author of the book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility, and honored to be a part of the Source family here with all of you tonight so that we can usher in a new year of better health for all. Thanks for having me, Kathy.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Julissa, again for coming in tonight. And of course, Source Nation, for more information in reference to tonight's show, of course, and if you're listening, telephone number to reach us is 619-924-0933, 619-924-0933. And of course, you can always go over to drjulissa.com for any information in reference to tonight's conversation. Now, Dr. Julissa, of course, at the top of the show, I was explaining to Source Nation that tonight's conversation was going to be about the two main causes of diabetes. And the particular article that you have written, and thank you so much for giving us this valuable information to speak on tonight, you stated that 470 million people are projected to have prediabetes by year 2030. How astounding. Talk to us a little bit about that, Dr. Julissa. And man, that is a large number. What are your thoughts about that?
It really is truly frightening. Along with that number And that's how I began the article, the two main causes of diabetes. I began with that alarming statement so that people can really, truly be aware of the actual true issue that is happening right now. And the World Health Organization actually estimates that right now, over 346 million people worldwide have diabetes. So it is frightening, and it is known as the seventh leading cause of death in the U.S. Now, what's most frightening, and I'll bring in, and I'm so happy that we're actually discussing this actual illness, especially with the new Chinese New Year that is ushering in. First off, it is important for us to take into account that the Chinese New Year that we're about to experience come February 16th is known as an Earth Dog Year. Now, without confusing anyone with too much of, for example, Chinese medicine, and I always relate that energy of the year coming in to what I may be experiencing in my office when I'm seeing patients in the coming year and what I'm to expect. Now, what Earth element means is that there's going to be a severe focus on the spleen pancreas meridian. And so the energy of the year coming in is going to be a necessary focus, Kathy, on digestive health. I am going to see, yeah, I know it just works out with the energy of what's coming in. People are not willing to really focus on certain changes in their lifestyle habits and in certain diet changes, and I'll talk to you about those two main causes of diabetes, but that's part of it. If people don't start making those changes now, this is a year where there's going to be a real energetic-like focus on the health of the pancreas and the spleen there, and there's going to be more challenges that they'll be facing if they really don't focus on keeping those organs healthy, the spleen and the pancreas. So that's a significant thing to keep in mind.
Wow. Good information there. Good information. Now, what I want to do, Dr. Julissa, with that being said, let's talk about the fact that this disease actually, you stated that it was the worst disease, but this disease actually destroys the body system, every part of the body. Let's talk about that. Why is that?
In naturopathic medicine, we don't even view cancer. We don't even view things like, the diseases that really scare people today, cancer, AIDS, and so on. In naturopathic medicine, we don't view truly any disease worse than diabetes. Diabetes is truly a disease, that we know destroys all body systems. It affects the urinary system, the circulatory system, digestive system. It just causes havoc on the entire body and destroys all systems. And so known as the seventh leading cause of disease, but we see it as a true disease that breaks down the entire body little by little. And we need to do everything in our power to try to keep something like this at bay. And it's important for people to know what those two main causes of this disease are.
Okay. All right. Good information there, too. Now, I want to talk about something from a personal standpoint. Diabetes, because diabetes actually is within my family. My mother as well as my father both are diabetic. I want you, if you don't mind, share with Source Nation some of the symptoms. A lot of us are walking around and don't even know that we may be diabetic. So talk to Source Nation, if you will, some of the symptoms and some of the things that we need to look out for in reference to this disease.
Okay. First, wonderful question, and I'm so sorry that mom and dad are dealing with this, but they can help their bodies heal, and there are ways to obviously rebuild the organs of the body that have become weakened and imbalanced, and this is a wonderful time to really focus on that because, again, with the energy of what's coming in with Earth element year of the Earth dog, that those organs are going to be more susceptible to even positive changes coming in the year. So first off, the diabetes is known to be caused by two main things. First, it's called polygenic, in which it's genetic. and multiple genes, in other words, are involved there. And number two, it's called multifactorial. In other words, that there's some involvement there with what's happening environmentally and genetically with the person. So first, multiple genes, or second, environmental and the fact there are multiple genes, genetic factors also involved. So when you consider the fact that most likely it's the choices that they're making and so on and so forth, some of the symptoms that a person is going to start experiencing if they feel or think that they might be diabetic, they may start feeling a lack of energy. They may start noticing that they're urinating frequently. I also tend to associate, and not always, but sometimes that person has severe, almost uncontrollable cravings for not just sugar, but sometimes a very uncontrollable craving for refined sugars and things of that sort, that they can't stop, feeling that they can't stop eating and can't metabolize. Weight gain sometimes is a factor that is very much associated with diabetes as well. Also eating too much fast food and also craving a lot of that junky food, and always feeling thirsty. I've noticed in a lot of my diabetic patients tends to be also one of those symptoms that can alert you to being aware that there might be something going on. Blurred vision, I know very much, is another one of those symptoms. If you have a combination of a lot of these things and problems of circulatory challenges, if there's now tingliness in hands and feet, legs, having issues with sometimes the beginning of restless leg syndrome, where they feel that they can't keep their legs still, legs falling asleep, hands falling asleep, very much so. Diabetics suffer from a lot of circulatory challenges. That's another reason why I treat so many diabetic women and men that either then have challenges with impotence, women that then have challenges with frigidity, for example. And so these are some of those challenges. Now, I always love to go to where the emotion could lie as well, where the emotional root cause. And if we look at how Chinese medicine doesn't really separate the pancreas and the spleen. In other words, they consider it one and the same organ, one and the same meridian. They are the organs of the they are the organs of the earth element. So when I say earth element, I want you to think Mother Earth, for example, earth element. So mother, nurturing. Many people that are diabetic tend to have sometimes a root emotional imbalance where, for example, they may be over-mothering or an over-nurturing person, wherein the spleen and the pancreas are overloaded, or they're weakened in the other realm, where they're under-mothering and don't really give a darn about others. So then in the overloading or too much yang symptom of the pancreas, for example, where there's too much and it's an overloaded organ, that person probably is like, can I get you this? Can I get you that? Can I do that for you? Can I do that for you? Are you all right? Are you okay? It's a person who's kind of smothering others, okay? And the wonderful part of looking at this through the eyes of the Chinese, when you look at it as Chinese medicine, is that you can catch some of these imbalances in a person and know which organs are probably showing imbalances just from the change of mannerisms of a person as well. And that's something to consider. Now, the other realm, Kathy, and I would love for you to tell me which parent, if anything, has fallen, let's say, on which part of the scale, right? So the other end of the scale is that person that is under-mothering, who doesn't really nurture others and really is more self-focused and doesn't really care much about others, is not very nurturing, and so on and so forth. So that's the imbalance. That's more a yin symptom of the pancreas. Yang is overloading and too much happening there, too much smothering. Yin is more under nurturing, and they're lacking thereof. It's a more weakened state of the organ. And in either case, you still have to work with the challenge of the fact that that organ is not working properly and not filtering sugars the way it should, and ergo diabetes sets in. So I'm curious, do one of your parents fall into one of each, or how is it?
Well, I could say my father would be the yin. He would fall under that category. Okay. And then, of course, my will fall into the other one. But,
Okay.
you know, it's interesting how you broke down the symptoms because I remember my mother being diagnosed as diabetic. Of course, you know, my father has been diabetic for quite some time. And, but with my mom, she always talked about, you know, having tingling in her arms or having tingling in her feet. And, shortly after she was diagnosed with breast cancer and then of course was diagnosed with her being cancer free, that's when they found out that she was a diabetic. And they were going through a series of tests and was just asking her questions, and that was some of the things that Mom said. She said that, you know, she had tingling in, you know, in her hands. Sometimes her left arm felt numb, and she had tingling in her feet. And then, of course, she always dealt with fatigue, and that's exactly what she was experiencing. Now, with Daddy always complains about his vision. You know, with his vision, and he always talks about being dehydrated, that he always needed something to drink often. So it's very interesting that you bring up those symptoms, because I can relate. I can relate to that based off of what my parents had shared with me and actually have seen. I'm also curious too, Dr. Julissa, let's go back for a second. When you talked about the multifactorial and the polygenic, now the difference between my mother and father in regards to medication, my dad has to take insulin, so he does the shots, but my mother actually takes a pill. So let's talk about that if you don't mind. And does that have anything to do with polygenic as well as multifactorial?
Yes. It's a more
Okay.
chronic, right? It's a more chronic challenge when it's polygenic, because now we're talking about genes being the main factor cause of the diabetes in that person. And in many cases, those are the ones that tend to fall the most into, for example, using insulin. That has been my view in my practice, where you see generation of grandpa had it, my dad had it, and so on and so forth. Where it's multifactorial, it's when the diabetes has really developed, let's say later on in a person's life, because of diet changes, environmental changes, and also possible genetic factors that would have been turned on if there was also some sort of genetic link there within the family that for example, your mom could have inherited. And so then they go on other medications that are pills, pill medications. So that's the difference in that sense. I do want to share this very important fact. Holistic medicine, and I work with both realms and look at how the emotional factor is so very much involved in the majority of illnesses and imbalances within the body, Kathy. So I do have to share this with you. Holistic medicine teaches us that grief is the emotional cause, also one of the deep-rooted emotional causes that turn on pancreatic challenges, like turning issues on in that organ like a light switch. And I have to tell you that with the majority of diabetics that I've come across in about going on 23 years in practice, knowing that aspect of what holistic medicine teaches us about how grief is a factor, many times I find that my diabetics, before their diagnosis, I find that they've become diabetics on the heels of some sort of tragedy, on the heels of some sort of loss. So let me explain that grief is, I'm missing something. This is lacking in my life. I can't believe it's gone. I can't believe I don't have it any longer. This is missing. I don't know what to do. I can't be without this in my life. I've come across diabetics that lost their homes and then all of a sudden were diagnosed with diabetes. I've come across diabetics who lost a family member, a sibling or a parent or something, and then all of a sudden were diagnosed with diabetes. People who were diagnosed with some sort of other severe illness that they feel threatens their lives, and then they have this awakening of, is this it? Is this all my life is going to be? Am I going to die soon? And then all of a sudden, because of that grief, are then diagnosed with diabetes. So I know that this is personal, but you did begin sharing this with us. If I may, Daddy, your father, before he was diagnosed with diabetes, did he suffer some sort of emotional, traumatic event that caused him grief?
I really don't know, because my daddy was diagnosed with diabetes. I think probably in my late teens.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to say anything that was probably maybe traumatic, was him losing his father.
Makes sense.
I'm thinking if I had to name anything, would be that, and then having to really step up and be, you know, the dad to his younger siblings, if he's the oldest. So if I had to name anything, I would say that.
Okay. I'm sorry for his loss. And then if we look at Mom, what traumatic event or news or challenge did she undergo prior to her diagnosis that could have turned on and caused her so much grief that it caused this to then set within her body?
I would say the breast cancer. Also, too, just being a single parent and raising myself and my two sisters, doing it all on her own. There were so many things that we have gone through as a family, not having my dad there at the time. So I would say that, possibly, for my mom.
Right. I'm sorry, yes. And it usually is on the heels of something like that. So we're looking at a grief being a huge part, and so to help a person work to strengthen themselves, to come off of, for example, prescribed pill medications, to strengthen the pancreas to a point where they can begin to lessen, for example, the amount of insulin that they use and inject themselves and so on. That is one of the focuses of the work that I do with the diabetics. But most definitely, I have to work and go back in time in their history and what was going on in their realm, what was going on in their circle, what was going on in their world prior to the diagnosis that brought on some sort of emotional shift that brought that on. So thank you for sharing. I know that's a sensitive subject, but yes. Mm-hmm.
Great information. Love that. Source Nation, we are speaking with Dr. Julissa Hernandez. Tonight's conversation is all about two main causes of diabetes. Information that she's sharing tonight, definitely you can go out to drjulissa.com. Again, drjulissa.com, and of course, continue to follow us here at Source Radio Network and Kathy B Source Radio Network, as well as our main station page, Source Radio Network. I want to go back to the article, and again, thank you, Dr. Julissa, for sharing that. I love statistical information.
Yeah. Yes.
So here in the article, you have given us some great information here. A new update from the American Stroke Association. You stated here that adolescents between 10 and 19 years of age were diagnosed with diabetes. Now, of those, 57.8% were Black, 46.1% were Hispanic, and 14.9% were white. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's very interesting also with the percentage breakdown of ethnicity.
Unfortunately, genetic tendencies where we, Hispanics, African Americans, we tend to have those higher rates of these detrimental diseases. And I feel it's yes, genetic factors, but also most definitely environmental, diet, and very much related to that emotional part as well, where if the person is truly suffering, if they're going through traumatic things, if they're grieving through life, then that is something that is going to be turned on because of less means or whatever other factor it could be. But I know for a fact that just from working with patients and for so long, it's diet is also a very big factor if it's the multifactorial cause of the two main causes we just discussed. But genetics does play a huge part. You'll find that those statistics are absolutely correct. Much more diabetics are found within us, African Americans and Hispanics. It just is.
Okay.
This is worldwide.
Great information there too. Great information. Great information. You went on to say, and thank you so much for sharing that with us, 18.3 million adults were diagnosed with diabetes. 8.3 million were males, and 10 million were females. Talk to us a little bit about that too, because we're seeing the difference between men and women. What are your thoughts on that?
Knowing once again that an emotional challenge could be there, where grief plays a part, and so on and so forth. I can tell you still, and I do have to, if I am going to talk about the emotional aspect, let's talk relationships and how those also dominate very much in our lives. And I feel, as does the amazing couples therapist Esther Perel, her work also focuses on how the quality of our lives really truly depend on the quality of our relationships. And many women, many women in 9 countries still right now in the world, where women can be, for example, let's say murdered, for example, for straying. And a lot of women suffer, for example, in relationships where, let's say, the male counterpart is the one who is on a constantly straying challenge, and a woman has to stay silent and suffer and so on. I feel that it's very much also emotionally rooted in why so many more women are having that challenge. And that's just one aspect, but dealing with a home and children and so on, and maybe looked at as less than in her relationships just because she is female, and that there could be a lot of those factors as to why I feel, just from, again, working with so many realms of people from so many areas from all over the world, that I feel play a part as to why women are suffering more with this disease than men do. If we look at it from the emotional aspect, I feel so.
I think that is a good explanation of that. I feel the same exact way. I want to, and thank you so much for sharing that. In the article, and again, Social Nation, this is a great article. You can go out to Julissa-2 to get more information. But you talked about what makes the disease worse. You talked about, the symptoms of eating more, craving, having sugary foods, fast foods, caffeine, alcohol, all of these things. I know that we often consume, and sometimes a lot of us consume way too much of it. Talk to Source Nation, if you will, from a holistic standpoint and from natural medicine. What are some of the things that we can do, especially if we're intaking in a lot of that? What can we do to prevent in doing so? What are your thoughts?
Most definitely. The first factor that I recommend in my patients is, let's change diet. We must focus on eating. We must focus on becoming more vegetarian, less animal meat, and incorporating much more plant-based foods in the diet and less animal meat. That is a significant factor to helping your body overcome the challenges of diabetes. Time and time again, I'm able to take people off of their medications. And various times, I'm able to even bring them off of their insulin if they've not been on it to a point where now the pancreas is completely dependent on it. I do that. It's possible. The body knows how to heal itself if you feed it what it is missing to do so. And so I love to make sure that that is one of the aspects that they know that they must do. Diet first and foremost. And then, of course, feeding the body, not just with the changes of foods or bringing in more plant-based foods, but plant-based foods and eating a more vegetarian diet includes herbs and roots as well. So I love bringing in things like banana leaf. I love bringing in those types of herbs that I know are going to work.
Right.
With patients to help correct that, to control the cravings. And if they're an overweight diabetic, help them bring themselves back down to health by using things like a glucose tolerance factor type of chromium and things of that sort. So certain things, formulas that I use called pro-pancreas that are specifically to build and strengthen the pancreas back. Another factor, coffee, is one of those drinks that I most definitely tell my patients who are diabetics they must discontinue. It has been found, especially in those that are blood type A diabetics, that coffee is one of the contributing causes of pancreatic cancer. And, you have people like Steve Jobs and Michael Landon and Patrick Swayze who have died of pancreatic cancer. And so, diabetes is a precursor to having challenges like that of that organ. And so that drink, along with other diet changes or factors that I very much focus on, need to change.
Wow. Good information there as well. As we are wrapping up, Dr. Julissa, I want to talk about the two difference of diabetes. They basically have stated that there is type 2 and there's type 1. Talk to Source Nation, if you will, about 2 and some of the things that we can do to prevent both.
Okay, so I don't feel that you mentioned that your dad was born diabetic or that it started with him in childhood. So I feel that mom and dad were probably type 2 diabetics, wherein...
They're type 2.
Okay, so...
Yes.
Right, it developed later in life. Type 2 diabetics, it develops later in life, and they do produce insulin, but the problem is their body is not using the insulin correctly. It's not using the insulin properly. And so that factor is something that we have to help the pancreas begin to do once again and just balance the body once again. Type 1 then is something that tends to occur in childhood or someone that can be born having challenges with diabetes. And it's much more severe, and they are completely dependent on insulin. They don't produce it at all, but I always feel that and have proved time and again that we can build the pancreas back to health and so on. And if you really nourish it and focus on balancing in that sense, the body can show us miracles. So that's the main difference there.
Great information. Thank you so much, Dr. Julissa. If you will, please, as we are wrapping up, if you would have any encouraging words, maybe some tips and advice that we did not share in tonight's conversation, if you wish to share, I would love for you to do so at this time. Sure.
Thank you so much, Kathy. If you find that you have been diagnosed as a pre-diabetic, if you are one that is a new diabetic and just taking, for example, medication, oral medications and so on, and not necessarily on insulin, then know, yes, that you can begin on your own to start building your bodies back to health. If you're on insulin, I recommend you go to a natural health care practitioner to help you in that process. But know that begin to look within yourself, and I feel that it's important to do some self-reflection and maybe notice where before that diagnosis something was awry in your realm, in your world, emotionally, that could have triggered this, and work within yourself to work on that root emotional cause first so that your body can follow suit. Because whatever's happening in the subconscious, the body listens to and responds to. And so I would say that's one of the most important aspects that one can do if they want to go towards a journey of healing. Look within yourself on the possible emotional root cause that could have triggered the issue.
Love that. I love that. And if you will, please, Dr. Julissa, share with everyone, how can we get more information about you and continue to support you in your efforts?
Thank you so much, Kathy. You can all find my information at drjulissa.com. That's drjulissa.com. And you can type in and search for the article, 2 Main Causes of Diabetes, or just type in diabetes, and all articles that I have related to that disease, including diabetes in children and so on, will come up for you. And I look forward to being here with you again next week. Kathy, this new year has begun amazing, just as the others, and I can't wait for 2018 to keep rolling through with you.
Awesome. Well, again, Dr. Julissa, thank you so much for coming in, and definitely we look forward to having you back here in the studio again next week. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.
Good night.